Welcome to the woods. The birds are out singing today, and the chickens as usual. And whilst the world continues to go batshit crazy, I did mention in my last video that I thought it'd be a good idea to run through some basics on how to get through a tough time. And this was brought to the fore recently when we had the storms in the UK. I can't remember the name of them, but Storm Shaniqua or Storm Desmond, Storm Stormzy, whatever. Two storms close together, took down some trees, blew down a few walls, and left a few people that I knew without power, without electricity, for a relatively short period of time, 24, 30 hours. And even in that relatively short period of time, it caused drama and a little bit of chaos. So I thought I would touch on alternatives that we should maybe be looking at. Because in these crazy days, and in the times we're living in, it would be prudent to prepare for energy shortages, food shortages, communications breakdown, the loss of the internet. These are all things we've spoken about and touched on during the last 2 years. Coupled with some of the things that happened during the pandemic, could put people in a very tricky situation if they're unprepared. So what was the problems that faced these friends of mine who found themselves without electricity? Well, the obvious one is they had no electric light. So we're going to talk on how you can get your lights on. Their home also had electric heating, so they had no heating, and it was cold. It was down to about 1 degree, and they've got children, so keeping warm's relatively important. Their cooker's electric, so they couldn't prepare food, and even over that short period their mobile phones went dead because they couldn't charge them. So now they had no light, no heat, no way to prepare food, and no way to communicate with people. Now, over a relatively short period of time, that may not seem like such a horrible thing, but if that had stretched out for 3 or 4 days, it would have been increasingly difficult. And if that had gone on any longer, it would have caused real hardship. Now, I'm not talking during this video about going off grid, and I'm not going to talk about things like if the shit hits the fan scenario. This is just basics, really. So we're going to look at light, heat, food preparation, and communication. So the first one is getting the power sorted. If your power goes down, you need an alternative source, and the easiest way to do that is a generator. There's no point in buying some tiny little 50, 60 pound toy generator. You need to be looking at around 2 kilowatt. You could go just under, but around the 2 kilowatt mark. And it needs to be able to fit your location. There's no point looking on eBay or your local selling site, finding a bargain for a huge, gigantic Lister diesel generator if you live in a second-story flat. You're never going to find anywhere to put it. So the generator you buy needs to fit your location. The first thing to remember is the generator will need to be run outside. You can't run it inside your house. You could if it was small enough, and you can extend the exhaust to a window, but it's not advisable. So many of you sat there watching, if you're living in flats or apartments, you haven't got a garden, you might be thinking, well, I haven't got an outside. Well, there is an outside. It's outside your window. And you can buy a 2K suitcase generator, they're called. They're compact, they're about 1.5 foot square, relatively light. You can tie rope to the handle and hang it out of your window, literally. Most of these smaller ones come with a 3-pin plug attachment, so you simply plug in your extension lead and run it into your flat or your apartment. If you have got a garden, you can maybe look at a slightly bigger generator. You can pick these up second hand for next to nothing these days. £100, £200 max for a second hand one. If you're going brand spanking new, you might spend 300, 350 quid. If you're buying something slightly bigger, it's probably going to have a generator plug on it, not a 3-pin plug. And you probably haven't got a generator lead. So pop to your local hardware store or Screwfix, something like that, and buy yourself a generator fly lead, which plugs into your Jenny and has a 3-pin attachment. That way you can run your Jenny outside, plug your extension lead in and run it into the house. Now on a 2K Jenny, you will be able to run, if you're sensible and your lights is LED anyway. If they're not, I would advise you to change all your bulbs to LED bulbs. They take absolutely no power. You get the same luminosity as a 100-watt bulb out of a 3-watt LED. So it's worth investing a few quid in some LED bulbs. You can then plug in lamps, freestanding lights. You may have to buy some of those, but you will have light in your house or your flat. You can also plug in your computer, your laptop, your TV, your phone charger. So all of a sudden, there's no electric, but you have got light and you have got communications and you have got entertainment to some extent, which is handy if you've got kids. A little 2K Jenny, as much as it is going to be invaluable, is not going to run electric heating. It's not going to run the electric heating in your house, and it's not going to run freestanding electric heaters. They're just not powerful enough to do it. So you're going to need to look at an alternative heating source from electric. I would suggest you look at a Calagas heater. You can buy them brand new. You can pick them up second hand. You want a Calagas heater. They're portable. You can move them from room to room. Again, that's handy. You may want to heat your front room during the evening and then wheel it into the bedroom or the kids' room at night time. Buy yourself a Calagas bottle to go with it and store it somewhere. Tuck it away. I understand a lot of you may be pushed for storage space, but they don't take up a lot of room. and it will give you heat. Some of you might have patio heaters. Bring it indoors. It will heat your front room just the same as it does your patio. So with a Caligas heater, you've got your heating sorted. With your Jenny, you've got your lights, your phone charged, your computer working. Cooking. Again, your Jenny's not going to power an electric cooker. Anything with a heating element is just going to be too powerful unless you've got a very large generator. So you're going to need gas to cook on. Now you can go to Argos, any camping supply shop, and buy yourself a little fold out camping stove. They take aerosol cans of gas. You can buy those in packs of 4. I should think a pack of 4 canisters and the stove itself is probably going to set you back £10–15. You can get double ones. Put it away in a cupboard. Should you ever need it, you can bring it out, plug in one of the canisters. You can cook. You can cook on a saucepan. You can boil your kettle. Don't put your plastic electric kettle on it. It'll melt. Right? But you can boil water. You can make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So a camping stove, a generator, a Caligas heater. And I'm not going to go into makes, models or anything else. You can Google all this yourself. You can search the internet till your heart's content. But make a list. You don't need to make a list. This is a video. You can go back and watch it as many times as you want. It is a list. Find something that suits you and then get it and put it away. So we've got your power sorted. We've got your cooking sorted. We've got your heat sorted. And it's important that you remember that I actually had someone say to me, it wouldn't affect me, I've got gas central heating. Well, that might have been okay in the 70s or 80s when you could light your boiler yourself with a swan vest to match, but that's highly unlikely today. It will be digital and you're not going to light it. It will not ignite. Your pilot light on your boiler is lit through electricity. And if you've got no electricity, guess what? You've got no gas central heating, which means you've got no hot water either. These are things to bear in mind. Communication. When this power cut hit, and it was relatively short, as I've said, the biggest hindrance to the people I spoke to was that their phones went down. So they couldn't contact anyone. But not just that, they had no idea what they were doing the next day. All of their diary, all of their appointments, all of their life was on their phone. Make a list of all of your contacts, a hard copy. Get their phone numbers, addresses, write them down, keep them in a book. If you lose your phone, or if your phone's not operable, you've still got it. Do it today if you haven't already done it. Take you about half an hour. You don't have to write them all down. There's no point putting Sally, the girl you met in the pub 3 months ago and you took her number, but all the important numbers, put them down. Sorry if your name's Sally, by the way. I've got a little list here. Okay, next one is food. We've discussed this on and off over the last 2 years, which is everybody keeps talking about food shortages. And now with what's going on in Europe, we're hearing it again. Ukraine exports huge amounts of food to Europe. We import huge amounts of food from Europe. We get quite a lot from Russia. Europe gets quite a lot from Russia. There could be food shortages. Now, that's quite important. So stock up. For those of you that have already done it, well done. You need dry foods, rice, pasta, packeted food. You need tinned food. This is stuff you can store away and it lasts nigh on forever. So get some soups, get stuff in tins. And as much as it's relatively not high on my usual shopping list, buy yourself some canned meat. You can buy ham in cans, and yeah, it's fairly gross, but if you chop it up and mix it with some pasta and sauce, hey presto, it's a lot better than just pasta and sauce. And it's a good source of protein. So canned meats, canned goods, dried foods. If you've got kids, don't forget fun stuff, crisps, biscuits. Put them away. Put them in a box if you've got to. Stick it in your garage. Put it in your loft. Doesn't matter where it is. If it's out of the way, all the better. If the time comes when you need to dip into it, you've got it. There isn't a problem. There is a problem if you haven't got it and need it. A first aid kit. I don't know if any of you have ever bought a first aid kit. They're fairly useless. Build your own first aid kit specific to you and your family if you have one. If little Tommy is prone to headaches, you're going to need a supply of headache medication. You won't find that in a first aid kit. So there's no point opening your first aid kit and finding your eye wash bottle, which would be completely useless when dealing with the incidents that are more likely to happen. So get yourself some plasters, some bandages, and medicine that's specific to you and your family. Stuff that you know you're going to need. Get yourself some painkillers. Box it up and put it somewhere where you know where it is. If you're getting a generator, which I hope you do after watching this, you can pick them up relatively cheaply. You can put them in a shed if you've got a shed, and you know what, these suitcase ones, you can slide it under your bed. They're not large, but if you get that, you're going to need fuel. The problem with buying petrol now and storing it, which you can do relatively safely, is that it goes off. Most of the small generators do run on petrol and not on diesel, which is a shame because diesel will keep for much, much longer. But let's say it's petrol, there are additives you can buy. So if you're going to store some petrol for your generator, which I would suggest you just, even if it's only a gallon, buy yourself a bottle of additive that you can bung in there that will prolong the life of it. Once that's added, you can keep it a year, maybe 2. As it is, after about 3 months, if it's got no additive in it, it will start to degrade, and there's a likelihood that it won't work. And the last thing I'm going to talk about, and these are only the basics, this is how would you just get through, not how will you survive forever, but how will you get through that, let's say a 10-day period, if the power went down and the food supply was running low. Are you in a position where you could be comfortable, where you have light, heat, you can prepare food, and you can still power up your devices so that you can communicate? And I will touch on communication again right at the end. The last thing's water. It's unlikely that your water supply is going to diminish if you're living in a standard house. But that's not to say that your water supply can't be cut off or degraded. During the flooding a few years back, there was whole areas in Gloucester that couldn't use their water because sewage had got into the water system. If for some reason the water system is degraded, maybe an attack of some sort, it'd be handy to have some, wouldn't it? It is a necessity. Buy yourself a couple of 20-litre containers, fill them with water, put them away. Put them away in a garage. If you haven't got a garage, you haven't got a shed, you haven't got access to outside, just buy yourself a crate of bottled water. It's not expensive. Put it away, slide it under your bed, stick it wherever. Right, it will last ages. And if you use it, you can always replace it. So keep some water. And this last one is for a pirate friend of mine who did say to make sure that I talk about communications. And rightly so, because it was the biggest thing that came up during these power cuts was the lack of a phone. Now, hopefully, if you've got Jenny, you can now get round that and you can fire up your phone. But what are you going to do if the network's down? For whatever reason. What happens when the internet goes down? For whatever reason. How will you contact the people you need to contact? Now, the easiest way forward is going back to the 1980s and grab yourself a couple of CB radios. Keep one at home. Keep one in your car. You don't have to bolt it to your dashboard and have it on show for all who travel with you. But you can make sure it's working and then box it up, put it in the boot. Keep it safe like you would a tow rope or a first aid kit. And the same with your one at home. Set it up, make sure it's working. That way your family can always contact you if you're away from home, and you can always contact your family. If you've got a network of friends, maybe get together, see if you can get a bulk purchase. You can all get one. You can contact your friends, contact your network. Should there be a cyber attack like they've predicted, and they have a way of ensuring that their predictions seem to come true. So if keeping in contact with friends, family, and maybe an extended network is important, I would say that a CB system is probably the most cost-effective way of keeping in contact. And with that said, I hope this little list will be of some use. If you've got any questions, pop them down in the comments. What I would ask is that if anyone's watching this who hasn't subscribed, please subscribe. Share the video around to anyone you think it could be useful for. And I'll speak to you again soon. Have a good day, you lot. See you soon.